Moses. Present. I'm sorry, Ms. Cardino. Present. We have an invitation, Mary Dell, Esther.
God, you have bound us together in a common life. And we are gathered here this evening out of concern for our community and a desire to enhance the lives of those who call Black Oak home. Unite us in our common purpose so we can work together to love our neighbors. God bless our elected leaders with courage, wisdom, and foresight to provide for the needs of all people so that we may live in justice, peace, and truth. Amen.
Thank you so much.
And I'd be happy to lead you.
Please do. You know the receipt.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We do the Texas flag now.
Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to Texas, one state, under God, one indivisible.
Righty. Announcements. So I see posted today, we're at stage 4. Water restrictions that was coming down from our water supplier. That's the whole Candy Lake collection there. There's pretty much the whole system is on stage 4 because we're still in the middle of a very bad drought. So that's stage 4. It's posted online. Basically, no outside stuff. There's times. And there's still no burning ban. A lot going on. Public comments. We have folks signed up. Thank you so much. Okay. I'll just try Amy Arnold. Set that timer for her. She goes, she's normal.
I just have one thing I'd like to address. Councilmember Moses, I would like to express my disappointment that you didn't show up to the workshop for the budget today. I feel like the people who elected you to be their voice, and that's the time when we'd like to see you use it. If you do not want to see taxes raised, I would like you to be here to tell that to staff, and to represent the people who elected you. So I was disappointed that you aren't.
Thank you. So now we go on to the public hearings. Okay, so we've got Lynn Davidson, so is first one up.
Hello. My name is Lynn and I'm actually the property owner, so I think so I'm going to give you a little more detail, and if you have questions later on in the meeting, I'll be able to. So 919 Main is located at 281 and 10th, and I hope everyone got an opportunity to start by. If you can remember what it looked like 2 years ago, we've done a lot of improvements to the property. It's currently zoned R5, which is mixed use residential commercial. It is our primary residence. We do live in the main house. We're seeking to do a lot split and also a short-term rental permit for it. We're not quite sure what we want to do with the home, but we don't want to rent it or use it for a business because it's tied to our personal names and our mortgage is the reason why we're doing the request. We've also added plenty of parking. The guest house is on its own utilities, has its own utilities, and has had that for like 25 years at least. We're not changing any of the structures or adding anything to the property. And on the letter for Mitchell, they live adjacent to us on 281. They live in California. Their house is a rental. I did try to reach out to her before we brought this. And, you know, as far as her not liking short-term rentals, I understand her comment about it, but for me, she's next to a gas station, she's across from a hotel, so I don't feel that that's gonna lower her property value.
You can be around when we actually discuss this?
Yes.
Thank you so much. That was it for 9/19, May 6/19. I vote we have two. We have Mike Chris.
Hello. My wife, so Mike Chris, my wife and I are new to Plano, not new to Texas, but we're trying to relocate back to Texas for our final home. What we're, can we have the, now we're perfect. Amazing.
Yeah, we're gonna go over this in the packet, so
Okay.
we'll get up.
Okay,
We
fine.
can call you back up at that, if we have more to say.
So we're just trying to put in a workshop / RV in the back corner of the property. But there's a 5-foot setback on the one side, on the south side, which is fine. But we're asking for there's a 10-foot on the back fence, but we're asking to move that to a 5-foot only because it came with a built-in pool, and really in working with the Mahoney's on the building, it's really gonna be, we're gonna have to come back on one of the features that we talked about. So we really have a good plan, and it's not a cheap building, so we're hoping to get it okay.
Thank you so much. Also, on that same subject, Mrs. Ubaldi.
I live right here at Route 26 and I just wanted to know if it was gonna interfere with our property or with Douglas' property, because he's right next to us. And he didn't want his land going back, well, we don't want it as 5 feet from our land as well.
Okay, what my understanding is, they just want to, it's be on their property, but just a little bit closer to the fence. Like, right now, they can only go 10 feet from the fence, they want to put it 5 feet. So it wouldn't interfere with the property on the other side.
Okay, because we had talked about it as neighbors, you know, and he had said, well, they're right there on the fence already with the stuff for the pool. And that's what we were discussing last week.
Yeah, there'd be more on this in a little bit, when we actually go into our agenda.
Okay,
Yeah,
all right.
thank you so much. Okay, now for agenda items number 9 and 10, Mr. Caswell, start up.
I just can, item 9 is the sale of the land south of town, 9.4 acres, right on the 281. For those of you who don't know, that's just north of Rocky J on the west side of 281. I would be opposed to this because as 281 approaches, that's 3 lanes there, it's going to be widened. I think that property value is going to skyrocket. That's just my opinion. I realize this says get appraisal, but I think it's tremendous commercial value down the road, more so than it is now. I think you should, lease the land right now, but I don't think you should turn over that asset and turn it into cash just yet. Item number 10 is possibility and to proceed, I guess, with the previously discussed matter of moving the city to the fire barn. And then, I guess, rehabbing the city hall and selling it and this building. I would be opposed to that. I think you should lease out the fire barn immediately. It's been sitting there 5 years. Not gonna draw big revenue, but right now it could draw some revenue, I think. I believe the future for the city hall would be to look at different options besides just fire barn. There's other places, other arrangements that could be made. A year ago, the argument was that the city hall was overcrowded, and the staff as well as it was a year ago. Had to fix potholes, had to fix water lines, had to fix sewer lines, and I would be terribly opposed to taking out a loan to make accommodations nice for the staff when you're not taking care of the streets, the water lines, the sewer lines. So,
Thank you, sir. And Stephanie Wright on item number 10.
Hi there. I also write for the paper, but I want you to know that I'm not here in that capacity at all. This is me as a private citizen, and this is me just asking questions about the city. So I'm not representing the paper on this topic. I feel like the city hall here downtown is an important part of the civic life in the town of Blanco. I think that the building is charming. I wonder what it would look like and what it makes the town feel like if you move that to another building that doesn't have the same amount of charm or history. So my questions would be to invite you to think about how that would impact the citizens of people who live there and how they would feel about that. I also wonder ultimately what it makes the town look like when you move sort of all of your civic life things off of the square, which in my mind is sort of the heart of public life here. So I'm just asking questions. I'm not taking a position. It's also part of being wearing two hats. But I just invite you to think about it. I'm curious to also hear about how you finance. Ultimately, what you think, what kind of money you can gain from that. I mean, there are still vacancies on the square. So I'm curious why there's a need to do that. Those are my questions. Thanks for listening.
Thank you so much. All right, that's the end of the comments and hearings. Going on to presentation number 1, Executive School Clerk Association. Oh, here she comes. All right, you're Mrs. Goodall?
Yes,
All right, welcome.
thank you for having me here tonight. To give this award. The city clerk or the city secretary is actually the oldest public servant. Going back to biblical days. And we pretty much do a little bit of everything. We're the ones that you call when you don't want to call your attorney because you don't want that, well, it depends, answer.
Academy or running when you're talking,
Or your citizens call when they don't know who else to call, because we always answer the phone. And so in honor of all of the fabulous things that Lauren does, she has received the Texas Municipal Clerks Association Achievement of Excellence Award. Paperwork. She has to demonstrate that she excels in 9 out of 12 different categories. And she has reviewed that application for peers. We are very tough graders. And so not everyone gets it. And in the state of Texas, there are over 1,200 counties, and Cheryl is only giving out 47. So congratulations. Thank you.
You got that?
Thank you so much.
Can you understand any of it?
This is gonna drive me crazy. You go get my earbuds
Rita.
and do a favor.
Staff presentation.
The tool table, the tool chest table on the right,
Not mind that for a minute.
or the white one.
Mayor, council, residents of Blanco. This first item, I'm sure that was right here. It's the one on the top.
What?
Okay.
That's too bad.
New business number 919 Main Street. And it's, and what this request is.
Wait, you do a staff presentation.
Yes. Okay, yeah, so the request is a variance.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm sitting here because I'm going on.
Okay, well, that's agenda item number 1. We're on staff presentation.
Staff
No, it's been a long day.
Long day. All right.
You had 3 hours staff presentation.
I'll try to jump ahead. All right, okay.
Yes. Yes.
Okay, here we go. All right. Oh, this again.
These are dead.
No pressure.
Yeah, you open the word.
Open with,
Do I open with Word?
Word pad.
Oh,
You did, I'm gonna work with PowerPoint. Let's choose up another app. Word travel pad. That's what you did earlier.
That works.
Oh, yeah, there you go.
Try one more thing. Hold on. Hold on. That's right. Well, I may just have to do this from my computer.
what if you try to open it with, PowerPoint?
That PowerPoint's not open yet, it doesn't have a license.
Oh.
Okay. So first of all, I want to just mention some of the things that are happening. We have our next, meeting for our workshop at 3:00, August 13th, which is the second Tuesday of August. We're going to probably have 2 or 3 workshops. We actually have 3 scheduled. Hopefully we get it all done in 2, but that's probably not going to happen. We actually went through all of the general, general fund today. We're still trying to get some numbers, for enterprise. And if you have noticed, there has been people over at the water plant. That's because they are starting to fix that, put the filter and the waste system in. That is what people saw, in the last day or 2. And, then the other thing that you have may have seen is that PSI are starting the meters now. So they'll start pulling meters, they've gotten the meters, and this is going to be a process that takes a couple of months. So, and then just to reiterate what the mayor had talked about earlier, we are at stage 4. We got, not only is it stage 4, it is for a bunch of counties that are also served by Texas Water, which we are in Canada. So that is basically, kind of an update of the main things that are. Thanks.
Thank you so much. And I'm sitting here in email to remind you to put in the key. That's use the PowerPoint and Word next time. All right. Police department. Chief Warren.
Our monthly calls for service are down slightly. Our arrests are up. Our traffic stops are down again. And I've addressed this earlier with y'all during the budget. I did make 1 conditional job offer recently, and he'll start in probably 2 weeks. And so, and we got several other interviews and or background investigations going on right now for other applicants. Other than that, I don't have anything else. On old business is invaluable.
Yeah, number 2.
We got it.
Thank you so much. All right, moving on, consent agenda. We have the minutes from the June 11th meeting.
That stupid button. Oh, crazy.
Anybody have any revisions, corrections on that?
I'll make a motion to approve the consent.
Okay, thank you so much. Moving. Now we're at new business item number 1, Warren.
Now I can start, okay. All right. Also, I thought that, so the 2 public hearings, the first one was 919 Main Street. Yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and jump over one here, basically the variance is to have a lot of 5,500 square feet. So they asked for the variance before they were gonna do the plat, so they'll do an administrative plat after that. We'll also see as part of this project, an STR application, which we'll get into. This is an R5 district. The map here. Okay, so the main house that the applicant lives in was built in 1962 according to Blanco Tag. The single-story stucco wood home, which is a guest house. Some places they call it accessory dwelling unit, mother-in-law unit. That building was built in 2000. Go by there. There's a little halfway that goes here. What they're looking at doing is making this a 40 foot wide and 6,500 to 5,500. As you heard from Lynn, I'm going to go back to R5. It's generally 6,500 square foot lot, which is a small lot, and it would be 60 foot wide, so they would be 1 foot wide. Currently, it's 0.42 acres. Right on the 10th and 281 as a Main Street address. So let's go ahead and put their information on here for you, 40 foot wide. And one of the things that you want to mention was the planning commission recommended it. They recommended it really based on the fact that it could be another business and more opportunity for this applicant. What I will let you know is that regardless of whether you approve the variance or not, they actually can do an STR. So this allows them to do what we call a non-owner occupied STR, which means the owner does not live there. But if you denied the variance, they would only be allowed to do what's called an owner occupied STR, which they would have because they would own the lot because you would let them subdivide a smaller size. So having said that, we're going to go ahead and go back. I think you kind of got a good idea of what kind of this looks like. Also on here,
And P and Z, they're
P&Z's recommendation, I believe it was 5-0, was to approve it. So recommendation, an STR in this area close to 281 does not appear to adversely impact the main. The recommendation, an STR in this area close to 281 does not appear to adversely impact the neighborhood. P&Z recommends approval of the variance for a lot smaller at 919 Main Street, so 6,500. It's actually going to be 55. Questions to staff?
so without the variance, they can do the STR without anything. Do it because it's owner occupied.
So it would have to
They need a
be,
permit, but it's on that.
they would have, yeah, it would be automatic, it would be owner occupied, but they couldn't sell. So for example, I mean, that's the difference. Sure, there's a value to that. And we have 2 properties versus 1. So that's,
And both homes are on their own meter already.
yes, ma'am. That's on water and sewer. Yeah.
Any question? Or you're still here?
I have a question about, they know for STRs, it's supposed to be more than 10% in the neighborhood. And I have the map of where the existing ones are, but I don't have it.
So I checked the map, both Lori and I did, and there's nothing in that block. So they don't hit that 10% threshold.
You know what the closest one?
Do I know what the closest one is? It's on the block. I don't know.
There's one behind the Lutheran Church, 758. I don't know another one.
Oh, that's not.
If we approve this variance, would it set a precedence for future developers to be able to request lot sizes that small? Sure.
Well, yes, it could, but every project is different. you as a council did approve a slightly smaller lot. I think it was 5,300. It was on Main Street, but near the Catholic Church. It was the Dosser property. They were existing, like this, they were existing properties, not exactly the same situation, but there were 3 properties and they had 1 lot and they divided it. One of those lots, because the way it was situated, in the 5,300. So there's a precedent. So I wasn't going to mention that because I would like to talk about each project separately, but there is a precedent if you want to. You have already approved something.
And it would be something that would be hard to defend if we did not want to allow that in the future and wanted.
Well, I think we could defend, if you decide not to approve the variance, I think we could defend it because you'd be allowing STR anyway, because you could do what that is owner occupied. So I think you could go either way. It's a light ask, but at the same time, there's not a lot of hardship. So you can go either way, but the P and Z went the way of approving or recommending approval to you. Thank you. Anyone else?
Just a comment, I drove by it, I thought it looks nice and cute. So it does not seem out of place. Now, that doesn't affect how we vote here.
They've done a very good job.
Good job on the property.
I used to live in that little house. I wish it looked like that one.
So they did a great job inside and out. I'll entertain a motion on, you could decide number 1.
I'll move to approve special use permit to allow lot size variance at 919 Main Street.
More discussion? All in favor? Unanimous. Very good. Moving on, second part of that question is the short-term rental permit.
So it does mean all the default between change on STR now that you approve the variance for the 55 or 5,500 or 5,550. So the recommendation from planning commission to you is to approve the STR.
Discussion? Motion? There's a second. Sorry. All in favor? You got it, unanimous, very good.
Thank you.
Yeah, good job, guys. Thank you so much. Okay, moving on. Number 3 is 619 Live Oak Street. This is the building setback.
So Michael Chris owns a home 619 Live Oak, and this is another one of those requests that are relatively on the light side and relatively doesn't have a lot of hardship. So what I'm going to do is kind of explain how planning commission came up with this. And first of all, I will say that when I talk to applicants, I always tell them that I don't advocate projects. I just try to review them and bring them to P&Z. And so, not making an excuse, but one of the reasons why I stand and come to you as it is approved because Mr. Chris wasn't at the meeting last time. So, having said that, I'll explain project looks like.
Oh, yeah.
The requirement is that there's a 10-foot rear
Yeah.
building line. And I've been there several times and kind of see part of it as you're driving. I didn't get on the property, you can't really see it all. There's a swimming pool that's currently there. And this is on 7th and Live Oak. But the reason for this variance basically is that you cannot have an RV in residential zone. If you have a garage that covers the entire RV, then that's allowed. But the city aesthetics, you don't want to have RVs parked. I'm not saying it doesn't happen, but you don't want that on a basis of having RVs in the neighborhoods. So Mr. Chris wanted to put in a building garage, and maybe have some other things in there. And there's a pool already there, and there's a home already there. So what he needed to do was on the rear of the property was to be, we actually made 6 foot, but this is the rear, since the front is considered wide open. And he 5 or 6 feet instead of 10 feet. And there were 2 people that had objected to that neighbor. Again, so this is one of those that you approve or not approve, but the planning commission, I'll explain why they disapproved it, they feel, and I want to recognize Mr. Chris, but he can explain if that's true or not. A couple of the commissioners thought that you move that building up away from the swimming pool and not necessarily have to be 5 feet from the rear, that they can actually move it up. Now, that may or may not.
Move it towards 7th
Towards up. That's right. That's correct. So that was the reasoning for disapproving. And like I said, small ask, but not a lot of hardship. So there's both of them. So having said that, I'll go ahead and just show you the rest of the drawing. So there's a swimming pool. See the building there, original house. So that makes it kind of tough. I mean, it's going to have a hard time fitting in there.
So let's go back with you. Which is either one, but which one's the 5 foot? Which is the 10 foot? Right now, where's the 10 foot limitation? Is it on the
10 foot limitation is on so it's on the rear of the property, which will be here.
that side?
Yes. And Mr. Chris wants to go 6 foot, but it'd just be easy to ask for 5 foot.
And that property on the other side, is that where the old Big Sam? Big Sam building?
No, that's down the street more. This is right across from the old nursing home.
But on the back side of the.
Yeah.
Oh, is it? Okay, yeah.
It says it.
Okay.
So
Is anything in that? Is someone living there or?
It's commercial.
sure. If you want to recognize the applicant, I'm sure he'd be willing to explain. But he's part of it.
Well, I'll stop it later. Yeah, that's what I didn't think he was not able to explain this to the planning and zoning commission.
Oh, sure, that's it. Can we look at those, drawings, sir?
Oh, he brought a flash.
Oh, okay. I didn't know what prepared. Okay. But just try to make it as clear as possible.
I am curious why you don't want to bring it out more towards 7th and up a little bit to more than pool altogether.
So, yeah, also, I mean, yeah, the pool is in an odd spot.
Yeah.
And there's some trees up on the closer to big trees, live oak and 7th. And so kind of like a balancing act. So just a few slides here, right? Several satellites slides. Oh, yeah. Those are, the rest are just talking points about, the building construction and so on. So there's just the aerial of the surrounding. So I guess that was a horseshoe pit or something, but just to the left of that is where we're looking at the current timber clearance.
What looks like a horseshoe.
Yeah.
So if you go to this, yes.
Yeah, there are some trees up there.
And so I'll blow that up here in just a second. There's a better picture here in a second. Okay. Yeah, so there's the basic outline of the pool versus the building that kind of makes it healthy. So we go next, please. And that just zooms in the next. Yeah, so there's the basic, because we don't have a garage, it's got a converted garage. And the driveway doesn't allow for a carport because it's too close to the road, so it's like, okay, we're gonna have to find a place to park a truck and then our two vehicles. So the plan is, a garage, carport, a little porch, a shop, and then the RV spot. So yes, the 5 foot is not, doesn't sound like a big deal, but we're gonna have to give up something. As simple as it sounds about that 5 foot, right? We either lose a carport or a 2-car garage, one or the other. And so, we're just thinking, well, there's nobody on the other side. The other fence, with our neighbors is currently a 5 foot variance. So we just didn't think it was that big deal of an house. And then there is currently a shed there. It's like 2 foot from the fence, but that will disappear.
How are you gonna get your vehicles to? and
Yep, so you can barely see.
Yeah.
Well, it's just terrible. Ma'am?
Yes.
Okay. The plan is actually, the Mahoney's proposed a concrete drive on each way, but that's so ugly. So we're just gonna make this will probably remain grass because the RV won't come out in and out very often. But here's just a decomposed granite drive from 7th Street.
So no big trees have.
No,
Correct.
Excellent.
Okay. And I think that may be. Oh, okay, there's a better. The overlay.
What are the height?
So I think the RV garage is about 14 feet high. And the idea is a nice design, so it's gonna be peaked all the way to the back, and then the rest will intersect. So Lori's just, I don't know if you have them on the phone, but they provided me a draft of what's going on. Anyway, questions, anybody? And certainly if I know there's some objections to it, but I'm not real sure what those are, like the pool equipment and so on.
So the shed's going away, that's already close. to
That's correct, yeah. So the RV approach is here, and we're gonna move this pool equipment because it's in the way, and we'll put it right by the pool. And then, so the RV is right here, and then the shop and garage facility. And same way. So,
And Warren, behind it, that's commercial, right? The old. Sam? Yes, it is, commercial.
It's on the other side, it's already five.
Drive on that.
Yeah, but we're not messing with that.
And the side that you're asking for.
Is the 10.
The commercial side.
Feel strongly, have any questions?
What were the complaints? You said there was some complaints from other residents or other landowners?
I'm okay with it. It's gonna be a residential area, like you just said.
Oh, well, sure.
Yeah, it's not gonna be like in and out different.
Oh, no.
No, we-
No, we're just.
That area.
We live there. Yes.
Yeah, the always sort of makes me feel.
Yes.
You can do the RV
It's
parking
not
without the.
coming into our side.
No.
I'm sorry?
You can do the RV thing without.
Yes, we'd lose the garage. We could get 2 cars in there.
But nobody's gonna be living in the RV. That's.
Oh, no. Absolutely. If anything, that's our guest house. This is our other house. No.
I know they don't allow that.
Well, we don't want people.
We don't need it. We don't want much string. I wanna know who's there.
No, I live in the Locust area here in San Antonio. We're trying to go get some.
Cause when it's get away from.
Oh, y'all are okay.
You keep so secretive for a long time.
And then anything we have run through, we can come to the shop and fix it, right?
I can fix a lot of stuff. You got projects.
It's not some. It's all done.
I'll make a motion that we approve the variance.
I'll second.
Any more discussion? All in favor? Oh, look at that. Very good. Great presentation. Thank you so much. That helps a lot. All right. Okay. Warren, this is about the historic commission. New business number 4. Thank you all for coming.
Community vibe.
Thank you.
Thanks for being a good neighbor.
Thank you.
Warren, it's on you. Number four.
So this went to P Z, last week. And this was presented by Rudy Neo, who's the HPO officer. And basically the request on this is, to add an extra, mission member to go from 6 to 7. We also have to make that change in the UDC. And the reason for that, really is because they've been having a really hard time getting, forms. And of course, quorum for 6 is 4, and quorum for 7 is 4. So if odds are that you're 7, then it helps you get quorum. I mean, that's pretty simple. So,
You need 3 and 4?
so is that,
3 and 4.
now, so if you get 6, the quorum is still 4. Yeah. Yes.
It's 7 forms.
And it's 7, it's still 4. So it gives you one extra opportunity. It kind of tricked me up. It really is. So it helps you. And that is why historic preservation. That he did to the P and Z, and they recommended approval to you, was council, to allow them to go from 6 to 7.
Now, there is a distinction of members that live inside the ETJ and outside the ETJ. Which kind of position would this be?
I'd like to say something, Mr. Chair.
Really, we had discussed it.
I'd recommend outside the district. I know there's folks that wanted to serve but couldn't because they.
Yeah, I know Retta talked at one meeting about if we possibly expand to the school district boundaries instead of ETJ, but we.
Or just lift it completely. I know.
Oh, I wouldn't like the school.
Well, what it says is up to 2 members may live outside the ETJ, but inside the district, the school district.
Okay.
To make it 3 members. That way that's just a thought. It just gives you a more better pool to recruit from. I know, Doug McKinsey wanted to serve a couple of years ago, but because he's outside of the school district, so they opened the business right there, you know. He couldn't serve. Yeah.
So whatever, thoughts on the commission.
Okay, that's not specified. Question?
So it would be to go to 7 members, and then do we want to change from 2 to 3 outside of ETJ?
Jeremy?
I don't like school district.
Because they don't have to be outside the ceilings, but it allows.
Yeah, that's not very fun. It allows, yeah. It's just an easier pool for recruitment. So, do I want to make a motion?
You should, this one's got to be technical, doesn't it? Lori, you need this one technical, or?
Yes, please.
Okay. All right, I motion that we approve ordinance 2024-0-0X proposed amendment to the Unified Development Code, Chapter 4, zoning districts and use regulations, Section 4.11, historic preservation fee, historic preservation commission. 2, the commission shall consist of 7 members and allow 3 of those members to be from the school district.
Excellent. Is there a second? Okay, she said the word. We raise your hand. All in favor? All right, thank you. That's very good. Thank you so much. Number 5, Warren. Certificates of obligation.
Because of the expansion on this. The impact to.
Okay,
Property,
for the certificates of obligation, correct.
because it references.
Okay.
Thank you. So, thank you, Mayor, Council. Certificate of obligation, last month, we talked about 2 specific things that needed to get funded. And then, of course,
once you start, there's other smaller things you may look at. And what I would mention to you is a certificate of obligation. We have on council that is here today, and she can explain any of the technical details I'm gonna miss. But essentially what we're looking at is $1.5 million, certificate of obligation for two things that we actually talk about doing. Just $445,000 for the filter waste, the water pump. The idea that we can cover some of that and then from the engineer, but we still have to finance it first. If you remember, and we'll talk about this in a later project, in a couple of items, there was a neighborhood market, and council had agreed in concept to bring a sewer line to this neighborhood LLC, which is a gas station, convenience store / restaurant. But what we did was looked at it, talked to Byron, city engineer, looked at perhaps bringing a sewer line all the way to 15th Street, the North City limits line, and added another couple of $1,000. Now, those are the two things that we actually have to have. The mayor, myself, other people in council, I talked a little bit before about the pothole filling machine. If we buy one multi-county, it's gonna be about 100,000. There's been some talk about doing different things, maybe rehabbing the old one, but we still need cash in there for basically getting a pothole machine or something like that. I just talked to Damon, they need to get another $75,000 in there for truck and some other things if we're not using it. So there are things that we need. The $1.5 million, if you approve this tonight, you can of course determine, other than those first two items, if you want to sub other things in. So for example, you just want to do hydrants right now, a portable generator, maybe you can do a quick fix on the wall or a paint wall, maybe something like that. So the first two things have to happen. The other items are kind of interchangeable. So that is my portion of it. You got the memo from Mark Fowler, who's our bond counsel, and if you have questions of staff or questions of the bond counsel. And Steve Perry, our financial advisor, is listening to you. So if you have questions for him, we can answer between the three of us.
Correct me if I'm wrong. That's paid for by tax money, right?
It would be interest in sinking, the combination of $3.4 million that's already approved for the TWDB and this will come out to be about 4.2 cents. That's what Steve is showing, because this interest rate is a little higher than the TWDB. This portion probably about a penny and a half. So yeah, yes it is. That's the answer.
Hi, Angela, on council. There's also a limited pledge, with the sewer system, amount not to exceed. So you see the combination of that.
I'd like to make a comment if I could. I know there's been some concern about certificates of obligation and obligation typically used for urgent matters. And I think that's a fair consideration and fair concern. I would submit that, in my opinion, us supplying city services to the city limits that should have had them many years ago is an urgent matter. And would justify using a debt obligation to fulfill what the city could have and should have been doing for the last 10 years.
And the water plant is done the good that's happening.
So there's justification, I believe, because they may be concerned that we're just going in debt willy-nilly. And I think the tax impact is pretty minimal if it's understood by the citizens that we're trying to fulfill the city obligations to supply city services.
So this eventually, even though this is part of the enrollment and
And the neighborhood store, even though that's part of that, and they're putting up $95,000, this will actually go to the auxiliary pool that we're having an issue with on the annexation, and two possible annexations and this other rumbling, so we have to start doing something.
I'd like to get the rock wall fixed as part of this. What were you saying we could?
So if you're, I wanted to give council some guidance. You have to have the first two because we've already said that you would. But these other 4 or 5 items are all kind of interchangeable. So if you wanted to deal with the rock wall, an emergency standpoint, and then the mayor's been working with a couple contractors trying to get some pricing. We'll probably have like a 150 range, I think.
It's be a lot less than what we have estimated already.
Yes, sir.
And the BMPs at Stallion, that will allow us to pump more water in town, right?
Yeah. Yeah, that's gonna be a requirement as well. Not negotiable.
Right.
That's-
Right, Dan?
That's
I mean, look at all
emergency.
these things eventually, but if, for example, if you said, I don't want to say hydrants because, but if you said, well, let's not do the portable generator now and let's not do the generator disconnects, let's do that as a separate item. We could, then you have your rock wall. And there's, and this is about 1375, so we could probably even put another little item in here. I try to be conservative here, but this is not 5.1, it's about 1.375. So
We still have a possible grant candidate for the rock wall.
yes, sir.
You know how much I've been pushing that. I'm all in favor of that, but, and yeah, see how that grant comes out for engineers as well. I think the immediate stuff like the creek bed where it's not pushing water into the wall anymore, that would be an emergency.
So are you wanting to do like a 2-phase for that?
Yeah, let's get some numbers because I've got a contractor that said we have to clean out the creek bed because it's forcing all the water into the wall. That's a first step. That could buy us some time. And I think that's something we can do ourselves quickly. And then let's just do our research on the rock wall because I got some contractors looking at it and we might need to form engineers.
So I know there was a proposal to, instead of like actually fixing the rock wall, to put a retaining wall behind it.
We're looking at some, yeah,
If we do that, could we still get the Army Corps of Engineers for the meeting?
it's possible. We also have the bridge that we have to deal with as well. It's right there. And I looked at, there's really no stacked rocks on city property. It's just a concrete wall. There's nothing. So it doesn't have to be done by the guy. They're on private property. You guys. I don't know if you have, but yeah, he does. He has this place. Yeah. Yeah, it is that's the rock wall. And, you know, so
And just curious, not saying we should, but is the 1.5 million the highest we can go on?
You can go higher, but.
I'm not saying should it.
No, hey, Steve, are you there?
I am here. Can you hear me?
One time we looked at some different options, and you can go, our rating probably gets us to about $7 million, but I'm trying to just do an economy of scale. Steve, can you answer that? Can we, what's the highest we can go to?
You can go up to any amount that you want. You've got the number in front of you tonight, and I think we could change that if you felt like that was appropriate. Obviously, the more that you borrow, the more of a tax rate impact you're going to have. But if you wanted to, say change this on the fly from 1.5 million to 2.5 million, just in case, that's something that you can do. We need to change some of the content of the information that's going to be published, but we've still got time to do that.
Okay. So we could go from 1.5 to 2.5, or 1 to 2, 1.5 to 2, something like that. And we could do that. I'm not saying we want to, but we could do that tonight, correct?
No, sure, you've got that flexibility.
And that would not go for any personnel or material.
Cannot be personnel and materials. It can only be equipment or project. Yes.
I'm gonna get the rock wall thing. So what can you they might hear the proposal.
We do have another item on the agenda that pertains to that. If you would
Yeah.
like, we could table this and pick it up after that.
I'd like to table this because I want to look into this a little bit more as far as where we're putting that money for the sewer line. I want to make sure that we're choosing the proper location for those lines. By investing that large money into our sewer system and providing services to some, we're going to trigger a large reaction from the others that are not getting it and their tax money.
So let me clarify. You're not asking for an approval of this expenditure schedule, but just the money first, and then these will come up as discrete elements down the road.
So my answer to that is we're asking for the 1.5 tonight. And you as council, again, next month we could interchange, we could say, first of all, you're gonna have to do the FTW, but, the other items, you might be able to change in and change out. I you want to do sewer line too, but if you want to do just a portion of the sewer line, there's a lot of different things you can do. Got to get FTW, but my goal is to get you to approve the 1.5 million tonight. This analysis was just to give you an idea of what you can do.
What the, I have a projection. Let me move that down to after number 9.
Yes, sir.
Then we can have that's the possibility. So let's address that, then we'll vote on this.
I have one more question. If we were to approve that any amount tonight, and we decided we wanted to add more infrastructure for other unserved people in the city, could we increase that to 2.5?
Well,
In the future, or do we have to set that number tonight? And if we do set the number, are we obligated to use all of it?
Can we reduce the amount that we borrow?
Do we have to draw that much?
Yeah.
Answer that's a question.
Yes, so to clarify, what you would be doing tonight is the first step of proceeding with the bond issuance process. So what you're doing tonight is essentially you're just giving city staff consultants the authority to proceed with publishing the notice that's in the back of the resolution that sets the maximum amount that you can be issued and the projects that you're required to use to proceed. So if you wanted to move that number up or down, you would do that preferably tonight because this triggers a notice that has to be published for your citizens to know when you will come back for the bond sale.
But let me ask you, not to exceed, though, if you said 2.5 million or 2 million, not to exceed, we could, the line could ultimately be only 1.5.
Correct, as long as you don't exceed, yes, you can.
Okay, so you don't incur the debt until it's drawn.
Exactly, and that you wouldn't vote to issue the debt until September 10th.
Okay.
So this is just, like I said, the first step to trigger what the steps you need to take in conformance with state law.
Would we have to itemize tonight what we think that we're gonna spend it on?
Well, yes, because the notice sets certain projects, so we cannot deviate from those projects. And we drafted it to cover the projects that Warren shared. There's flexibility,
You can use
but
broader language too.
yes, so like, for example, we mentioned water, wastewater system, street improvements, to include acquisition of street maintenance, fire suppression system, et cetera. But if you wanted to go outside of the scope of what's in the notice, we would have to.
We don't have to say 15th Street to the city limits.
No,
We
you
can
just
just say
say-
wastewater.
Correct.
It's street,
Street improvement and outside.
and we can add rock wall.
But
It's actually concrete.
And council choose when publish the notice up to 1.5. Town council and Labor Day choose to actually issue 100 or 750.
Yes, as long as you do not exceed.
I'm gonna move this item down to after number 9, because that's relevant. I'm gonna table that, we're gonna move on, thank you. And we'll get back to you as quick as possible. Now we have a report, number 6 from Mr. Kenneth Welch from the Transportation Planning Reservoir.
Thank you for the time. We logged in for our credit. For those of you that are new, Transportation Planning formally formed in February. as an advisory committee, and we would advise you and you all do what you please. Our mission is always to recommend a comprehensive transportation plan. Right now, that's all in US 281. It's a bigger project than that, but right now our focus is all on 281. We want to coordinate all of our activities, CMAC, planning, zoning, comprehensive master plan, streetscape, and city police as we go forward. We want to coordinate the infrastructure issues with TxDOT if it's a highway. So anything that comes along, state highway, we think that we should probably consult it. Obviously, if it's a broken water line in the middle of the night, then Infomart or somebody's going to respond to that. Our committee would not. But if it's a planning issue, then we should be involved. I think the pictures. And probably the most important thing, if we think it's essential that as we develop plans for the city, that we reach out to the community, get their input, make sure that they're taking place. The committee right now is myself, Joanna Hollis, Cambridge, Brandon Carlson, you. We have one vacancy. The committee was formed, board of 7 individuals. Jonelle and Wendy are kind of our energy and our sustainable environmental archivists. They do a tremendous amount of work gathering features throughout the county, but particularly in and around where we go to going to be expanded and the relief routes. They provided 600 more specific features. Libby and Brandon are kind of business contacts, and Bill DePew and myself are probably kind of large people, and the vacancy. We originally, the committee, we thought we did not want an individual that was city council or a city employee for that matter. So at the time we had 6 people stand up. They are, so have the things. As I said, we're working on 281. We named it Future of Main Street, but we have since expanded the definition of Main Street. It's going to be, through this rapidly learned, it's going to impact more than just the existing roadway width of 281. And we are working with TxDOT as they come up with their options. They will be back in October. That's the latest proposal. A proposal to down their number of relief routes to 1 relief route and a no-bill route. And there's been a lot of comment in the public about is no-bill route off the table? It is not off the table. They cannot take it off the table until we do the full environmental impact study, full analysis. That route is equal to anything else they consider and have to consider. So it will be on the table, and unless they change their plan, in October they'll have 1 potential relief route. The criteria that they're looking at right now to reduce the number of relief routes are safety, cost, transit time, and congestion. How much traffic will be diverted? How much truck traffic? Right-of-way acquisition that's involved, the number of displacements of residences that it takes out, and the environmental impacts, which would be water, historical, biological. It's pretty far-reaching. It's a big piece of the whole thing. And then public feedback. You all know they've been taking feedback. So they're kind of hard. They haven't gone through sticky notes. They load all those in the database and put them in. So that's the things that they're looking at. What we're trying to do is we're not going to make a recommendation to you on no bill or relief route unless you challenge us to do that. Our intent is to look at what's the impact on Main Street or Blanco if it's a no bill or if it's a relief route. what's Blanco gonna look like after the fact? Something's gonna happen. If it's a no bill, we're gonna get a lot of traffic. If it's a relief route, traffic's gonna be reduced, but that's gonna impact businesses and a lot of other things. So our challenge is to try to get a picture of the two alternatives and what that's gonna mean to Blanco. We looked at 18 different cities across the country that have experienced relief routes. And those are what we call studies. Those are after the fact, what happened to a city. So those involve a lot of interviews, local leadership, citizens, and the economy that was left after the fact, traffic flows after the fact. So it's a look back at what actually happened. And then we looked at 3 models which predict the future. Look at the studies, looked at a broader range of things. They look at the economy, lifestyle, traffic, a lot of things. The studies focus in on the economic outcomes, strictly. However, to do a study, now the studies were based on a lot of Texas cities. They were put together by the University of Texas and the Rand Corporation. However, to use the models, you got to have a lot of data put in the model. What's your population? What's your age? How far are you off the bigger cities? What's your sale per capita? A lot of different data that we can have, so that you can try to use those models to give us some kind of a prediction. Right now, we've got new traffic projections from TxDOT that go out to 2050. We've got population growth projections that are more update. You can see, state of Texas, for their planning uses at 1.8% population growth generically across the state. However, Blanco County is currently growing at 4.88%, has been for over 3 years. City of Blanco is growing at 4.85%. So I think what that means is the Yokon is growing faster than the rest of the state. I don't really think we should be looking at 1.8% for our growth. Okay, to be honest. City revenue, that would be sales tax revenue, gain or lose, depending on the outcome. We've got sales tax revenues generated by every business in the city of Blanco for 2023. So we're using that to try to tell you what your drop in sales tax revenue may be if you drop comes of businesses lose business. Likewise, we want to predict what the sales will be for those businesses. In order to do that, we need to talk to the businesses. Get the sales rate the way it is right now. And we requested that from the state comptroller to give us by company what their sales rate is, figure per capita sales rates. And then the most important, again, back to dealing with the public, we need to understand what the vision for Blanco is. And we've looked at the county's transportation and economic plan, which is now the whole city's comprehensive master plan, which was how it was on 12 years ago, 2004. And then it was updated again a few years ago, but that update was based on 100 input of 100 citizens, and they couldn't get enough input, so they went to the high school and got 50 of those input for high school seniors. So I don't think that input is really valid, so we need to get more community insight on what Blanco is going to be. Is it going to be a rural town? Is it going to be a veteran community? What's it going to be? Better definition. I know some nice gentlemen talked about master planning more, but that needs to happen as soon as possible. The feedback we've got from citizens, and this is just talking to one-on-one citizens in our community, that the general public is very dissatisfied with when they go to the TxDOT meetings and they come out there with sticky notes, but nobody understands it. I don't think that's fair. I understand how TxDOT does it because they do just be horrendous. That's the way they do it. However, we intend to answer questions, so we're going to hold periodic community forums. Talk about quarterly, whether that's quarterly or not, I'm not sure. We want to do it in the evening, the public can come with the full intention of we're gonna answer questions. We won't have all the answers they want to hear. We won't have all the answers, but at least we'll say, we don't know, or when will we have it, or how we're gonna get it. But we're gonna have, takes Howard to sit there and talk to people, try to get them engaged in the process. Start on a committee, we meet, there may be 1 or 2 citizens here, that's not enough. We've got to have them in. We want to look like what we're going to look like. And then we're going to try to publicize those meetings, and as our progress takes place through social media, through the city's email distribution list, newspaper articles, we're going to use all the media we can to tell the people what's going on, what the next event is. And again, we really need to see people's vision for Blanco with the master plan. One thing we've learned out of all those 18 cities that we look back at, every one of them said, if you plan ahead, you can impact the future. But most of those cities, I would say 15 or 16 of those cities, wanted a relief round because their economy was in the tank. They had business closings, military base closings, auto plant closings, or just a general downgrade in the national economy. They were hurting, and they thought, we'll get a relief route in, and that's going to attract business. And what they found is, yes, it did, but all the business left downtown and went to the relief route because they put exits in every opportunity. And when they did that, none of them considered, what about downtown? They get so excited to get to do stuff, they forgot about downtown, and downtown is sunk. It's taken years to build back their downtown economy. 2 or 3 that planned, what is our downtown going to look like after the fact, it's much, much better. Maybe a slight decline in sales, but much smaller because they knew what they were going for. They planned and they could take actions, whether it was zoning, whether it was land use, whether it was signage, whether it was marketing. There's a lot of things that you have the power to do, but you need to start early so that you can impact it. Yeah, whether it's a no bill or whether it's a relief route. If it's a no bill, you're going to face strangulation from traffic. Traffic's going to double by 2050. That means today the average traffic flow is about 13,000 vehicles per day. 2050 is going to be 26,000. Each day here is about 15.5. So, and of that, the average is 6% truck. That's the average daily per truck, and on the weekends it's 2%. So some days it's higher, it's much higher, it's like 12% on weekends too. So the truck traffic, TxDOT's trying to give us an updated projection for future truck. They're right now using 6% all the way to 2050. Many of us believe as it opens, trucks are going to come off by 35 and come over here. That's TxDOT to give us that line. Okay, so as soon as TxDOT gives us their last relief route option and the no bill option, the next thing they do is they start looking at both ends of the relief route. If they want the interchange at 165, and if so, how does that work? We have enough room where it intersects with the South 281. That's it. The Clover relief, what's it going to look like physically? They got how much real estate are they going to need to do it? The rest of it is a line on a map right now. They will take that line and they'll look at all those features that Jonelle and Wendy have provided and say, oops, we're going to have to move over 500 feet there because there's a historical something there. So that line is just a line. It may move a little bit this way or a little bit that way, or it may wind around something to be sure that they've taken into consideration all those environmental features. That's going to take them 6 to 8 months to do that process. And then we will try to work with TxDOT, give them our input on what some of those features might be. Once they get that done, they go into a preliminary design where they literally look at how much dirt they're gonna have to move, how many creeks they gotta cross, what those bridges or culverts look like. If they have sound barriers, what's the sound barrier look like? Is it a wall like when you're going into Austin? Or is it a row of trees? What are the repairing zones, those creeks? We can give them our feedback and what we want, those things. If they do no build, we don't have a definition of what no build is yet. No build could be, well, we still got to widen 281 north of 14th Street. We still got to do some things on the south end of town. What does that mean? Are they going to want to do something with our cross streets? Do we want to do something with the cross streets? Do we want traffic trying to cross 281 in every block? Or maybe we want to change some of that. That's the kind of thing that when they get into the design phase, which will take a year or 18 months, that's when we could be talking to them about those kind of things. And that downtown stuff could be either way, whether they're on a relief track, we even might want to start thinking about what's left behind on 281, what do we want it to look like? And how does that be paid for? That's a whole other issue. The next steps, first of all, we need to fill our vacancy. Our committee, Scott Rubin used to be an employee. He's no longer employed. He attended every meeting, February, and every meeting that the old committee had before that. He's got a wealth of knowledge on safety issues, traffic safety issues, knows people across the state, in TxDOT and in various law enforcement agencies and others. So we like our committee unanimously would like to fill our vacancy with Scott, and they'd like to get that done today. And then we want to announce that we are going to have a public forum on July 25th. Big conference room at the Buggy Barn. We'll get in the newspaper, we'll get all the notices out. And at that time, I'll give you the rest of the answer. I can bring a lot more data behind what I said. We'll answer your questions. We'll get a personal invitation to every committee chair. And so we hope to get a big turnout. Maybe ours. There'll be a lot of people there at us. Answers. That's what we're doing tonight. If you want to help us with Scott.
Question. I've got a question. You may have just answered it. On slide number 6, you were talking about having some data for the 18 communities and just the data for those interviews you did. I was going to ask when you would be able to provide that as a report. It sounds like you may be able to.
Those are reports that have been put out by different entities. Each one's about 50 pages long. Be happy to share them with you. I don't think everybody in the community can watch 50 pages report. We compare what we get out. And we've also, I put a spreadsheet together to kind of summarize what I took away from it. But everybody gets a little different readout.
There.
Yes.
Unless there's other questions, I'd like to talk with council about this in executive session. If you don't mind.
Okay, yeah, we can do that. Anybody have any questions before that? Thank you so much. Table this executive session for the suggestion there. Thank you so much, Ken. Good report. Number 7, Warren, donating this time to the library.
Was this Libby or who's gonna talk about this?
I'll talk about it. So in 2013, the city council approached the library about putting in a sign, electronic sign for the community to post the community events. That was supposed to be for a 10-year MOU. They were supposed to maintain it. Here, our city council maintains, pays for the electricity, and we're going to do the updates. I guess it's within a year, the contracted to change to do the signs,
To do the information
do the information updating the seats.
This is a great PC.
Yes, yes. The sign was funded by the PEC grant to the city. And then August 17th of 2022, the library updated its Wi-Fi internet connection routers, and the sign stopped working that day. We were working with the chamber trying to see if there's some, our IT people could do to help get it connected, get to work. The electronic, version, well, the electricity works to the side. It just doesn't operate for one reason or another. I know Libby's been in contact with both the sign equipment and the sign software. Both of them say it's your fault, that's why it's not working. But it has been inoperable since August 17th of 2022. Our MOU expired with the city in April of 2023. We've just like to try to have our chance at taking up a sign. We'll pay for electricity. We'll figure out how to get it repaired or whatever needs to happen to it. Because it's just been sitting dead. And Dana was saying that it is still an electric bill. So it's been inoperable for almost 2 years on the city's electric bill.
Yeah, but I would add that as long as I've been here, we've actually never used it. So they did it's still operational, but I
Correct me if I'm wrong, but last year, the Baptist Church came in, wanted a similar sign, less bright. And they were shot down from that because it violates the city ordinance.
We're working on the sign ordinance now, which it may or may not, so that's always been controversial.
Yeah, but the real reason is.
That was grandfather.
Yeah, it was the city that.
Grandfather.
Yeah.
Yes.
Privileges.
So I don't know what we want to do about it. If you want to try to get it repaired, we want to turn it into a library or whatever the ordinance wants to do with it.
Should that grandfather convey?
Whatever. We'd have to do a separate variance or whatever, right?
It should probably do what you like.
Yeah.
Fix it or the other way. Up to you.
I was just giving it away.
See what?
It's just giving it away. We need to agree.
Have no opinion of giving or not.
So is that just like a two deciding what to do with the sign and then deciding for grandfathering and then for the LEDs?
Well, we're just being informed that it doesn't work, it hasn't worked,
Oh,
and they're willing to take it over if we want to.
Then they have to get a new one.
Potentially, we might have to get a new one. It might be something like whenever we did that, new equipment installed, 16 of our laptops stopped working. And you had to buy an adapter to make it work again. And maybe it takes an adapter. Don't know. You never mind. Take it to see if you figure out.
Tearing it down, viable option is being done.
I'd advocate donating it to them and making it their issue, but under one stipulation that if it would have to require full replacement, one would have to fund it. It's not an ordinance.
Okay.
Approval.
From what I found out when I called around and finally got, by the way, there's very little information about that sign. But I was able to uncover the city's little binder and
It's a little binder.
there's some stuff in there. We gotta really dig, and that guy told me Curtis Knudsen went down and checked the connection. He's getting internet. It's getting electricity. It's just not coming on. There were a couple of those bulbs that were getting a little fuzzy. So when I talked to the technician, basically it's gonna take bringing it to a technician, and they don't live here. I can't remember where that sign came from.
Didn't PDC do a bunch of these for a bunch of communities?
They did, when they stopped allowing municipalities to do
yeah.
the signage, they gave everybody this grant money, and that sign in particular was under Night Sky ordinance stipulations even before the ordinance was done, because Wayne plugged in on that. Anyway, we're gonna have to get a technician to come out and look at it. It could be just a motherboard is fried when they updated the internet, something went amiss, but, that was not something we kind of went round and round and round. She told us, oh yeah, I forgot. We called them again. And we weren't gonna pay for it. City didn't want to pay for it, so we've been out saying.
I think they deserve to get it fixed, but the city does not have to pay for it. No offense, but no offense.
I think I'm in favor of the library having it, but in the original agreement, the city let the library put free messages a week or whatever. I'm wondering if we should do a similar thing where the city gets so many messages.
I like that.
Because I think it would be great, especially for like a special meeting on there. So people are more aware.
So it's actually in all you,
That we do not want you.
Like allowing the city to have some messages also.
And I will tell you, just so Crystal, so that you know, it is a login, an interface, you can log in to the sign itself and input that information. You can rotate, you can tell it when to start, when to stop, how long you want it for. And the rule was it had to be a nonprofit organization that was doing the event, which of course the city would be. So you want to keep that short and sweet for Crystal and her staff's sake. You know, council meetings every first, second Tuesday or whatever, so that, because getting in, it's not super difficult. It is a little bit time consuming to be changing the sign a lot. It'll run time, day, temperature, that kind of thing. Library hours, easy, that can just rotate, but just putting that out there that if everybody wants to be on the sign, that'll be Crystal's full-time job. Yeah.
Okay. Anybody else have any questions? Ryan had a suggestion.
I was just thinking about having, issuing a directive to Warren to draft a new MOU between City of Blanco and Blanco City Library on the, switching of the signs.
Combining that here.
Exactly, combine all the ideas and, present that in that city council meeting.
If it's gonna require variance, it could be easy for or it could here.
And then until then, can we allow?
You have to go to P and Z for.
Yeah.
I mean, it's already grandfathered. Is that what you?
But that doesn't necessarily convey a variance, a special use permit.
I don't think it would be an issue. I think they'll.
Well, heck, they disapproved the last thing we just approved.
Right.
They can do what they want, it's just.
With council's approval, I'd also like to issue permission to Blanco Library to fixing the sign before that MOU is drafted. I think we can all agree that we want to get the sign fixed, if you're willing to pay for that. I don't think that makes sense. Everybody agree to that?
Yeah.
Okay, all right.
and
That's
what kind of variance I'm gonna need, or is that?
Well, yeah, Warren will figure it all out.
Okay.
with you. And then, so we'll come back ready for action next month.
Planning commission meets.
Yeah, exactly.
We'll have Al tee up.
okay. Richard, you can feel free to get going on the fixing process.
Okay.
And with council's permission, we'll even waive the fee of it.
Excellent, thank you so much. All right, number 8, Warren, in for Mark.
So I want to do a little bit of background, and it's probably need to be taken because I've only done a portion of what you asked for, Mayor. But the reason for that is about 2.5 years ago, right before I got here, probably about 3 years ago, the city had made a decision to go from Public Works Department to having Infomark take over. The first day I was here, it actually didn't get approved as a table, but we approved it in March, but the actual bones of the deal got created by that council of 2021. Previous administrator. So one thing I'll say is that they've done a fantastic job and really good work, and they cleaned up a lot of things. As we go through the budget, it was too important last year to do it, but looking at it this year, truth is there is a big gap between what we can afford and what we actually is about. You saw it at the meeting, the workshop meeting, about $115,000 gap. Now, some of that might be bridged when we actually look at what PSI meters brings in, maybe or maybe not.
But basically, they're raising their rates from last year to this year by about $270,000.
Well, they blew through the cap, and then they didn't do it, what we call it, we use CPI, which is about 3.5%, but API is materials, CPI, which ends up being about 4.8.
But what I saw in the budget added up to about $270,000 difference this year over last year.
That's what the number indicates.
Okay. Without adding any service or any personnel, that's just same service, $270,000 more.
Well, it Luther.
But yeah, I mean, but
The answer is yes. The answer is yes. And I will say, again, fair or unfair, when we had our own public works department, and mind you, things have gone up about 20% since 2020, but it has gone from $950,000 to $1.35 million. Now, in that, there's the 20%, they're doing more work, all those different things. So the reason why I didn't have a staff report for you today is because I've been trying to work with them for the last 3 or 4 weeks on trying to come up with a solution. And the solution the staff had looked at doing was asking them to remove the API this year, so it will compound over the next 7 years of contract, which would be savings about $350. And for this year to do 2% reduction, which would be us about 110, which would have, and from my standpoint, the easier standpoint, it's always better to keep who you have as long as you can afford it. So I just received an email today and talked to them today, and it appears that they'd be willing to waive the API for this year that would make us pay it back in subsequent years. So what I'd like to do is talk to them further, come up with a real cost analysis, because it is very, very possible to have determination of convenience and move on. I mean, so being serious, because we are in the point we cannot afford.
I don't think it's premature to look at competitive bids and options, including the possible option of restoring a public.
It'd be more work, but it's possible, yes.
I mean, I think it's at the point where we need to look at alternatives.
Yes. So that's all I had on that. I don't know what directives or advice you have to give the applicant on.
You have it in executive session.
Does anybody have stuff, any questions, comments for now, or we can take it to the executive?
Do you have a recommendation to appoint?
Yeah, my recommendation would be that if they don't waive the API this year and let that be retroactive for the next 7 years, and if they don't agree to a one-time 2% decrease just for this year to help us, then we need to either A, set up an RFQ for a new utility operator, or look at the option of creating our own public works. However, we may have to take about 6 months to get that done.
For the RFQ, like, would we have numbers in before the next budget workshop? That's the.
We wouldn't have the numbers from them, but if you ask us to do an RFQ, we could probably have it by the end of August, not for the second workshop, we would have it for the third workshop.
Well, considering that we need to make budget decisions, this is the key central thing. I mean, we need to know this is important. We're not going to raise rates again. If they're not going to drop their fees, then, which you said they've been. So I think an RFQ would motivate them more than anything.
Unfortunately, you know, being a public entity, the fact that someone's going to publish what we have tomorrow, you know, he's asking me questions and saying, well, you could do a 10% rate increase. I said, well, I said, we're not doing that. I don't think that passes, and I'm not recommending it. But I never heard, he said, well, we're not making much money, but he won't specifically. I mean, the thing is, they're a private company, they're not specifically saying what the bottom line is.
I know there's other variables, but last year I printed all the budgets that were available in the city going back a number of years. And there were large surpluses in enterprise and general fund until they were hired, and it sucked down our surpluses out of, because it went from like 900,000 over 1.2 right then. Sucked out all the reserves, and then the next year they had to transfer 400,000 out of the general fund. I know there were other things going on, but our reserve disappeared starting when they were hired.
So they didn't like when I said this, but they were what I consider premium service. Premium service. So
We were almost Parker. I don't know. Actually,
They
the
did
million
enjoy
joint sense. Yeah.
but we cannot afford it under this current.
There are other companies that do this.
Yes, sir. Well, and it was between this company and Jacobs Line. I have no idea.
I wasn't part of that process. Tim might have been at the very tail end of it, but I wasn't there for that. But
I'm really in favor of putting out our, if nothing else, yeah, then come back and rebid.
Is it premature?
Not pretty sure. I mean, we looked at, we're $120,000 in the hole. Without the PSI, now we might be able to make up some of that, but we only have $260,000 on reserves. 100 of that is from the sale of property.
Yeah, we can't. But everything,
We're running
these new
thin.
meters giving us more money than we expect, but yeah. Yeah. So, discussion? Motion.
Discuss it in executive session.
Should we wait on this? We're gonna, I might go ahead and table it then until after the table session. Okay. Very good. Thank you so much. Hey, even if it's just, even if this motivates them to get serious. Yeah, that's not what I'm over. We are on number 9.
Yeah, let me see if I can find. So.
I don't have it in front of me, but first of all, I'll mention that Councilmember Cargill, the original deed, had Tim review it. The conclusion from that is that if and when we sell the property, it reverts back to residential.
Yeah, it can't be subdivided as residential. There's no commercial value on that.
And so one of the,
Sorry, can you repeat that?
There's no commercial value. It's residential. If we own it, we can do light commercial.
So we could lease it
we build it.
In theory, build the strip center and lease it, but we'd have to borrow the money to
to,
build
can't be
it.
like a ground lease and then they build it.
You're not gonna get much.
I've got the water accepted that used to go on it, but solid.
That's when you're selling just to tear it down or,
It's from
Probably
water.
because it reverts.
or keep it and tear it down.
So Bobby's got some insight of history to this.
Yeah, I remember this came out twice, specific years I don't recall, but somewhere around 2005 and again around 2010, the possibility of selling that property. There's a well on that property, as I understand it, it's about 10 gallons a minute. I think you had it.
I have it in the,
Yeah, I think it was about 10 gallons a minute at that time as well. It's a residential class well, so that it's capped off. Part of the discussions about do we sell it or not was that it would cost too much to make that low producing well, a municipal well. So we could bypass on that. But twice it came up while I was sat on council, just sell the property. And the decision to not sell it was based on, we had plenty of cash, plenty of reserves. When we had $1 million in the bank, we don't need the cash. It's going to be worth a lot more 10 or 15 years from now. Both times it came up. Let's just hang on to it. It's going to be worth a lot. It's all it is. And in my opinion, it's 10 or 15 years later and we need the cash. Now, you made a good point earlier, Tim, when you were talking about with the bypass coming through. Maybe we wait and sell it more for years down the road, but it would solve a lot of issues with the lack of reserves that we have, with the debate we have raising taxes or not, just to do what we have to do for this budget. So I think the benefit outweighs the potential financial advantage of waiting a few more years to sell it.
We could field the maintenance crew, fix all problems. We could do the rock wall and put a lot in reserves. It's going to help our credit rating, our interest rates, and everything.
And that would be what I would request, that you have, a lockbox that you put in either general fund or enterprise or both. Cut both those funds when you get closer to that 90 to 120 days that's recommended by our financial advisor.
It allows us to fill in some gaps. And then the rock wall. And all what the ask is now is just to do an appraisal.
Yes.
but it would be a residential type of. commercial appraisal, so it won't cost near as much.
There you go. If you're convinced that the deed doesn't apply, so okay, so yeah, you definitely see the less for residential appraisal.
Yeah.
What's it used for now?
It is, they stack brush on it and now it's a brush pile.
So you see a burn pile, there is a small well that does maybe 20 gallons per minute. It's just really for, to basically turn down the brush pile, but there's.
It's residential well.
Yeah, a small residential well. There's a, the property will have to be cleaned up before someone uses it. Years of stuff, if anyone ever wants to drive down there, we'll shut it down there. There's years of stuff.
It's, I don't care what the well's pumping, it's pumping more than we have right now.
Well, he's asking about
We can't use-
the cost of the residential.
we can't use to drill it as a municipal well would be about $500,000. Just, and then to get some gallons per minute, and then we have to pipe it and treat it. So I don't know that it's a viable source of water for the city.
These are firefighting or,
We can use it.
well, somebody can use it, but they can't be, well, we have to transport it, we can't turn a tap and use it. Treated and use it, it's not a municipal well, it doesn't apply to standards, city use. Now, it can be used for fighting when they're burning brush on the land, it can be trucked in, pumped into a truck and used for something.
Right.
Well, we can Church Street.
Isn't there like a vein right there that has good wells around that area?
It's
This
further
well was
east.
not, this well was not.
I think this is the first I learned about the deed restrictions. I didn't have any more time to think about that.
So a residential appraisal would be a lot less, like about $500-600, I'm guessing. Then we know what we're talking about. I don't know. This is not a commitment to sell. Let's just say, let's see, find out what it's worth.
So this is just an ask for.
This is an ask to get an appraisal.
So now our surplus goes to 9,500. I mean, that's chipping away at it.
I mean.
Do you have this in the budget to get this?
We have it in the budget. We have it in the budget.
This
Yeah,
year.
this budget.
Yeah, this budget year.
So right now what we're thinking about is doing an appraisal for about $500.
Yeah, residential appraisal is less than a commercial. I don't know what they do. for these
Are
days.
you thinking a broker to do, a broker? to
Broker
do-
price.
Yeah, they're good marketing now.
I mean, we can just
For-
look on
for free?
They do not charge for that.
Okay. I think, didn't
we
we?
do that.
So what do you want to do, Mark?
With your permission, with council permission, I'd like to get a residential appraisal and bring this back to you next month.
Can we do the thing that's for free?
Broker's price.
Yeah, comparative market analysis, it's basically an appraisal without all of the adjustments, because the appraiser does all the adjustments for location or signs or stuff.
I'm fine with that.
Yeah, I mean, free. Free is a good price.
I get it, I get it.
So
I would start with that
we
because
would,
it's still
so
on the
we want to allow Warren to get a broker's price opinion, put together some scenarios here and find out what we could use that well for, maybe. Just find out.
Yes.
Okay. That doesn't require a vote since there's no money attached to the broker's price. Yes, sir.
I don't know if you might want to consider talking to the landlord district that not look at the well. It pumps 50 gallons per minute now, that's because of the pump size in the well. They might be able to tell you that well can produce a lot more. I don't know. That's a phone call.
Warren,
Okay, I'll do it.
do you want this in the form of a motion?
Yes, sir.
We will do that. Make a motion that he can get a broker's price.
Make a motion that he can get a broker's price opinion on that and determine, give an opinion from the groundwater district. Doing the well.
So, all in favor? Okay, there you go. Thank you so much. Okay, so now we're gonna bring back up number 5, which was the certificates of obligation. We wanted to discuss that because it's possible there, rock wall sitting there. So the question before us, number 5, is regarding specific obligation if you want to put it to 1.5, or raise it, or lower it, if you want to do it all.
Could you tell us the generic descriptions of property categories that are covered by the notice?
So I would have to pull it up.
That'd be great. And based on the conversation we had earlier, since this is a not to exceed price, and to Councilman Mosley's comment, we may have other underserved utility customers, potential utility customers that have been waiting for service. I would be inclined to suggest that we, also in our city, our finance director, the finance advisor said we could go as high as 2.5 million. Why wouldn't we say not to exceed 2.5 million? If we end up just borrowing $1 million, so be it.
And the way that would work is if we do only take $1 million, then that's what the tax increase applies to, only what we get.
And the interest and the money we have to pay. But that way we've got a higher ceiling. Which makes a very good point. There's other people in town who were annexed 10 or 12 years ago at the promise they were going to get city services, and they're still not served. And frankly, I think that's part of the perception of the council not doing its job for the last 10 years.
This is also, there's been talk for several years to see a MAC plan, and this has been a long-term plan. This is the first step. This is actually breaking ground, turning shovels, making progress. I think it's a good thing. People are looking forward to progress.
I would like to have in the notice, the language that would allow the rock wall.
I agree with that.
That could be drainage, erosion mitigation or whatever. Yeah.
That's what I think it's water, wastewater infrastructure, I think.
Well, yeah, that would be more.
Yeah,
Erosion
just
control.
added to subsection 1, where it says water and wastewater system.
Erosion control.
Yeah, road improvement rather than.
That would be proper category.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, you should be voted. Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So, while you're looking that up, so I know, so even there's a up to 2.5, like these are basically another seals, they're basically bonds, right? So it's gonna have to be an issue date at some point. So what date does the council have to determine what the amount is? Because I know it has to get published to the public, has to sell, has to do all that. So I know if it goes up to 2.5 today, what's the?
Sure, so, as long as so let's say you want to do 2.5, as long as you agree to that tonight, we could, edit the papers or vote on that and we proceed. But if you're unsure about the amount and want to think about some more, there's no problem with that. Unless Steve has an objection, we could just push back you could essentially pick this up at next meeting, and once you agree on the new number, we can publish the notice and begin the process.
But then that delays it another 30 days, right? Because the public notice has to happen, like it all has to, the timing has to happen, right? So that's where I'm.
Oh, yes.
If the council doesn't agree on the amount tonight, what is that?
So it would push it back by however many days and then until the next meeting, but essentially, the notice has to be published in a newspaper of general circulation once a week for 2 weeks consecutively, and the first notice has to be published at least 45 days before the sale. So it's currently set for September 10th, but essentially it would push it back for a few days.
You go October to say that, but like you got it.
Well, I understood you earlier. I understood that if we could always borrow less than that.
No, right, and this is only, to clarify, this is only if you exceed the 1.5.
Well, if we say we want to approve 2.5 tonight.
Correct.
And then when we put it out for sale, we're only asking for 1.5 or 1.7.
Oh, yes, that's not a problem. As long as you don't exceed, you can always sell less.
So, okay, sorry, that's what I'm saying, if it was below, it doesn't impact the timing of the notice and all of that.
No, the only issue that would arise is if you say 1.5 tonight, but then you like decide on issue 1, then you would have to begin the.
So it doesn't impact. Okay.
That's right.
That's what I'm saying.
As long as the categories.
Right.
So erosion control is,
That's what
Okay, so.
or whatever it would fit to fit the retaining wall.
Okay.
Yeah.
And this is all connected to your water wastewater.
It's erosion, it's not part of our. Yeah, it's.
It's a water, wastewater system and related improvements. Now, Town Creek is part of your water distribution drainage system.
Okay.
That's
You're the-
according to
you're the-
US law. It's part of your drainage for.
Okay.
So we do the 2.5 million and then decide to only take out 1.5
There's no penalty.
million. Can we later take out the extra million? Or is it gonna get cut, like, we have to take it all up? at the same time?
After we do it. You could be without.
Yeah, and interest rates may be coming down.
Okay, it's basically issuing a bond type of security that someone is buying as opposed to a loan.
Who wants to make the motion?
Oh, and then just to, if you're gonna read it in, you just wanna make sure we get the correct number and then.
Yeah. We'll make the motion, we'll set it up.
I will make a motion, we move forward with reading these. Authorize and proceeding with the issuance of certificates of obligation and further directing the publication of notice of intention to issue City of Blanco combination tax and revenue certifications of obligations, series 2024A for $2.5 million, not to exceed $2.5 million for your categories as well.
Next second,
All second.
more discussion.
Yeah, a little bit more discussion. How we're on that information, only one thing on that list, I'm feeling comfortable with right now, that's filtered the waste. I know that's a big deal, $600,000 cable line. We're looking at even maybe doing some more, drawing some more money in. I've gotten a lot of feedback just from the last meeting since we put out notice of this, and community is not happy about it. Right now, I'm not feeling comfortable with what's going on.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second, we have one abstention. All in favor? All opposed? I will cast the deciding vote in favor. Each day. Aye.
No, sir, it fails. I got a lot of,
Oh, don't get a tie.
no, sir. You have a full council seat.
You don't have abstentions.
No, sir. He's not absent, he's just recusing himself.
Interesting. Okay.
Motion failed.
Okay.
2-2.
Yeah, I'm very moving on.
Wait, sorry, just going.
So,
We'll be
Two,
good with this
yes,
next one.
1 no.
to know,
You abstain. You
If he
abstain.
walks out of the
You're
room.
no? I thought you were, oh, sorry, I thought you said you abstained.
No.
Okay.
or abstain. So he can't vote?
No, ma'am, we've got a full council here. Yeah. An abstention equals an absent. He's a recusal, he's present. He's present tonight.
But he has a conflict.
I know, he's recused, but he's counted as present. If he were not in the room.
You walk down the room there.
Call a special meeting for 3 days from now, do whatever you like. But this is, well, that's a possibility, but, I would like to request that this come back to the council next meeting, or we have a special meeting or next month, and, I respect your, opinion, Councilman Moses. I think it's just critical that we provide our obligations and utility services to our citizens.
I
TW.
I expect this package to evolve by the next time presented.
I agree with that. I understand, and you made a point that I couldn't agree with more, that if we bring this sewer to one north city limits without looking at other people who have been waiting for services, that's why I suggested we add another. So we could, what are the other priorities? Who else can we fill our obligations to bring more utilities to the, they're obligated to get utilities.
I'm thinking even if we borrow that amount of money, just so you know how I'm looking at it, even if we borrow that $2.5 million, we're probably only gonna be able to serve 10% of the unserved. We're still gonna have 90% of the unserved.
We gotta start somewhere.
I understand that.
We have our capital improvement.
But I don't necessarily know that I agree with the, where we're starting with that. I think that, if we're gonna spend money on a sewer system, the value can be found. There's other sections of towns that will have greater value.
There's also a comment that we have citizens who pay $95,000, $86,000. So if you don't do this now, it costs us $95,000 more. That same line, because we have a cost area.
Well, I believe we voted, we can't go back.
Another motion.
I'm still standing where I'm at, so for right now, I wanna look into this more before I commit to borrowing $2.5 million on.
Kennedy, what's your objection?
My objection is, we'll be talking about, different things, that different market, possibly doing that. We don't know where we're gonna do there. I don't like the paving machine on it. I mean, that's.
Yeah, yeah.
I was also curious about the bottle machine.
I want that.
We don't have to do that,
You're gonna remove that.
right? We're
Yeah,
still-
this is not spending the money, that's not agreeing to those expenses. This is just agreeing to do something.
And I will agree to do something, but I cannot vote for.
Yeah, it's not including any detail, or my motion wasn't intended to include any details other than those two obligations.
That'll all be hatched out.
I do think that's an important, just so everyone is very clear. You're not voting for those line items. No, you are not voting.
No, but the first two items are pretty cut. Right.
Well, the first one is.
Well, the first one is, but
And the,
but don't get me wrong, the second one, if we vote for this, the second one's pretty cut dry also. We're not very much from there.
we're not approving expenses, it's just not approving expenses. Sewer systems.
Exactly. Sewer systems. And quite frankly, I don't care how much it is. I'm not gonna advocate raising anybody's taxes right now to any sewer lines of this town until that's what, I'll put it that way. I won't. If you guys can muster up 3 votes to pass this tonight, that's fine. It'll be without me.
So Candy, we're not approving any expenses at all, and that's to be determined at a later date. This is just giving us the ability to.
The way I was understanding it, and was that was going to be on there. It might be worded in a different way, but those were the items.
Yeah, that'll come on a later
Any
date.
such categories would be in the documentation.
There's categories that we're allowed to spend it on these things.
I wanna clarify. I talked with some council members, try to get some ideas. Put some items here just as guidance. This is not your voting on them, but I couldn't ask for 1.5 and you're like, well, okay, how did you get there? Because there's nothing listed. So, I mean, that's the other problem too. If, you know, you're saying, well, I don't want to vote on these things, but if I didn't put those there, then there would be the opposite. Well, how did you come up with 1.5? Just swap 1.5? So, like I said, I think, you know, if you can choose whatever you want, but you have to have the first one because we're basically working.
We need one and we need the BFPs.
Yes.
Exactly.
Candy, with knowing that it's generic and that there's no expenses. Okay, so we have to do another motion, another vote?
To be clear, could you state the categories?
Yes, so, in your notice of intention, we have listed water/wastewater system, which we could alter to also include unrelated improvements. 2, street improvements to include acquisition of street maintenance equipment. 3, public safety to include improvements of the city's fire suppression system. And 4, payment of professional service in connection with legal engineering, architectural, and fiscal fees associated with.
It's basically
I'm sorry.
river drainage and streets.
Yes.
Basically.
Street improvements.
Well, I mean, it's in our packet.
It's in our packet.
It's on the resolution.
Yeah, it's in the resolution.
Well, she's adding and related. Water waste.
That would cover the law. We chose to spend it that way.
So it's
Oh, we use that language to be basically statute.
And Warren, so the related expense approvals will be trickled out over the next year.
That's a question.
It's new business item.
Made it a lot easier.
That's the first paragraph.
We're at this.
1, 2, 3, 4 line.
You'd be adding just a little bit to the.
Yes, so on item 1, we would say water/wastewater system and really good.
That's the goal.
Make the motion.
Did you have road improvement or road repair?
Yeah, yes, I agree, it just says street. Yeah.
And related.
Street maintenance, yeah.
But this isn't, we don't have to do these.
Okay. Right, these are just water categories. If you were to say, you want to use 2.5 and spend it all 2.5 on water, wastewater, the improvements, you could do that, as long as it's one of these enumerated first.
Gotcha.
All right, I will make a further motion that we approve the resolution authorizing the issuance of certificates of obligation and further directing the publication of notice of intention to issue City of Blanco, Texas combination tax and revenue certificates of obligation series 2024A to include the categories of water, wastewater, and related improvements, street improvements to include acquisition of street maintenance equipment, public safety to include improvements in the city's fire suppression system, payment of professional services, and connection with legal, engineering, architectural and fiscal fees, and the cost of issuing the certificates collectively the project.
And the total amount, no more than.
The total amount not to exceed 2.5 million.
Second. All in favor? All opposed? Okay, all right, you got it. Thank you so much.
Mayor, I'd like to note, I'd like to discuss this with council in executive session also.
Yes, sir. Absolutely.
You're probably used to seeing Bart Fowler, who's about 6 feet taller than me. But anyways, he's going to say, he's already assigned. I'm just kidding, long time.
Thank you. All righty, moving on. We're running out of items here. Number 10.
So we talked about this about a year or so ago. And this is kind of give you an idea, some background, and then I think Councilmember Klum will probably state a few things, but we talked about moving City Hall, and I'll talk with the positive and the negatives. And the positive is City Hall. You get it off the square, which some people not positive, but what you do is that you allow that property, which is prime real estate, to have a restaurant or a shop or something that actually will have tax dollars, sales tax dollars, and you also open up possibly this building as well for different avenues. And so that's the positive. You know, I think the negative, we already kind of know that some people are growing accustomed to having a service on the square, but this would be very close to that, to the square. So this is from about a year ago with less employees, obviously, but City Hall could use an update. So what we're talking about is moving.
This is a dated presentation.
What's that?
Yeah, the presentation's a little old, but.
Yeah, it's a little bit old. This is a mock-up of what it would look like. I'm talking about the new fire station.
Well, that's the crappy mock-up.
I'll give an update on that. That's correct. So one of the optics, one of the issues that we have, to be very honest, is
timing isn't great, timing is never great. You still have things that citizens want, such as utilities, such as road repair, things like that. But this will actually not take away from that. This will be self-funded. Yes, we'll have to get a loan, but this will be self-funded from not only tax dollars, but also from getting, the rents. And so, let's look at the mock-up. It would increase the size of city hall offices, it would give us a bigger account chambers. I think this is about 600, to double that. And then the feature use, which we could put different things in, possibly possibly there could be other things going in there. So that's kind of the thought on that.
Can I speak to this?
Yeah, go ahead. Yes, sir.
Can you go back to that plan?
Yes.
And I don't have a super strong dog in the hunt either way, but I was asked to just explore this. I think what we're doing tonight is just having conversation and getting numbers, and is this the direction we want to go? But I will say, my comments on this, I didn't mean to take you off. Like, I'd like to give you some numbers in a minute, but, this future use part is another tenant space that's, I think, in the working numbers that Warren will share with us, it's not including cash flow. So that's for whatever we'll do, but it's future tenant build out.
Yeah, and the rent these days on that probably pushes about 50 a foot. So it adds up pretty quick.
Yeah, the comment I want to make is it's not really off the square, to block off the square, but that window on the far right, there's already been discussion on making that a drive-through place to pay utilities. This is all just concept that can be moved around, and this is no final plan. If you'll scroll back to the mock-up, I really hate this. The original plan I was asked to explore with a couple of contractors we met there is tearing all the skin, the roof's horrible, tear all the skin down just to the metal frame and rebuild it, and maybe do new steel around the side and a block wainscot. Two of the contractors I've spoken to have been very adamant that no reason to tear the side steel off. And for less than that mock-up, we could do historic looking rock on the ground to the roof on more than 50% of the building. So it looks like a historic building. One of the contractors said, if we decided to explore this opportunity, get some photos of what kind of rock we might see. The rock on the blacksmith shop is one example, or something like Uptown Blanco. So it looks historically accurate. It wouldn't be a two-story building, but it would. But we could choose what kind of rock and make it look a lot more attractive than that. But I just wanted, this is no permanent plan. This is just a discussion tonight. Is this a project we want to talk about? What are the numbers? Do the numbers really work? And the first blush for me is it could be a cash flow positive situation for the city. If everybody agrees, it's not too far off. So, conversation only, but I would like numbers.
And when you, this sort of patience you roll, but since you found no interest loans that are available for this.
Yeah, USDA has an unlimited loan, we have to qualify for it. If that's the case, then we would be able to, I don't have a number on me, but it's basically, it would be capital.
Yeah. Is it like we would, because there would be a time when while that's being renovated, we wouldn't have tenants here. So is there like, would we have to start paying a loan immediately?
Maybe.
So where we,
From wherever it is at the moment.
like the reserves.
You're talking a couple months, you're talking a couple $1,000.
So I do think having the city hall in the square really adds to our town. And it's, the square is for us, it's for the locals, it's not for tourists. Tourists come here and that's great, but at the end of the day, it's for us. And with post office going away, probably, I don't want to take city hall away. Like the square is so good, and it's not because the city had to do some downtown revitalization. We really did a great job, but it doesn't feel like that. You know, you go to some towns, you can tell they're not kind of acting. And this is just a great place for locally. Now, I do like the idea of making money off of something, so why don't we just set a fire station for lease? At least just, for 3 or 6 months, put it for lease, see if anyone bites. They can have free rent while they renovate it. When they renovate it, it's free rent for X number of months. That's no risk for us, and I think we might as well try that before we do anything else, see if we get any bites. Still would get the property tax and the sales tax from that building instead of this building here. And then the rent is very pay a loan.
Yeah, for someone to rent that right now, it's really just industrial. I mean, they would have to spend considerably to make it usable for anything.
They're not going to spend not as much, but they're gonna put rents will probably also be.
Yeah, but it's 40,000 profit.
And then start up for and then, so we could do that. I think it'd be a really cool skating rink if anyone wants to come to the skating rink. And then at the end of the 5 or 10 year lease, the shell is there for City Hall. It's cheaper. It's cheaper.
Typical.
I can appreciate your point, and I guess I'm a little, in my opinion, I'm a little swayed to the use of what this could be. Once we're away about City Hall in the town square. In my vision that I've spoken to a few of the guys about the comprehensive master plan, wouldn't it be great if we could bring Bensile Park onto the square? And these are commercial spots, with beer gardens and outdoor dining, and join the park, facing the park. So there's a real value to, in my opinion, for that. If we want to be a tourist destination and really keep the square, we're taking up a lot of real estate.
I love that idea, but I don't think it requires both buildings to be commercial. We could build that on the back of City Hall and make it the extra scene.
So I've had
I don't think it requires everything back there.
Well, I've had talks with the chamber has expressed interest more than once about renting this place, making it their office, and then doing like a gift shop / museum kind of thing out here. So that would be semi-commercial, but it's really a nonprofit and a community service. In this building, that's one of the conversations, and I don't know if it works.
We just need a council chamber. Perhaps part of that building could be a council chamber. The working contractor budget for this thing we were talking about, rock all the way up, is I would think in the $300,000 to $350,000 range. One contractor probably as low as $250,000, but I think it might have been last.
So the net gain to the city from that was before we factored the no interest loan, but it'd be in the range of what we factored, what, 60 to 75,000 a year. We added the rents and the tax as a net positive every year.
I mean, with the tax, that would be similar taxes in either location.
Assuming, well, no, it's about retail sales. It's about taxable. I mean, it's sales tax, and so I don't think you would ever get as much retail sales there as you would here. So that's, and one thing, so we did talk to, that talked a year ago at least. I know they're much more motivated now, but the post office is losing their lease next year. And the postmaster here, she doesn't make it find the same, but she liked the idea of moving into that space of the south end of that building. That's not a done deal, but it's, they have to go to the Austin. Yeah, Austin makes the decision.
One other thing, maybe it's not a huge deal, but if the fire station was turned into something for tourists or commercial, that would kind of drive people up that way and open the country corridor, which I've heard people want to do that. Whereas if it's City Hall, at least at first, we wouldn't get as much of that flow up there, but maybe not, because it's all
I like
citizens.
the idea of the Con Street being opened up all the way to the brewery, so we had, bike paths, and walking paths from there.
And you got the beer garden, going in there. So one thing we talked about over there, is putting rainwater collection and putting some EV parking chargers, there, if that's City Hall would be.
Yeah, that's conversation.
Yeah.
I think it's an interesting idea to explore, but I'm a little back and forth. I'd want to see numbers and projections both ways. So some said what Councilmember Swenson said about what if we renovated that and rented that out versus these, and vice versa. Like where's the break even? What's the cost benefit analysis? Because I know there will be some, but I want to, just for me, I've got to see it, so, but I certainly think it's worth exploring. Again, I guess some of it would be, where is it on the priority list? And I don't want it to take away from other things that we're working on. So that's the other thought that's floating around in my mind.
I believe if we started moving City Hall and redoing that, we might as well get the tar and gutters out. Before we got the water done, and the sewer done, and the roads done, and sidewalks done. Yes, we would deserve to be tar and gutters.
Even if it's a net gain revenue generator for the city to help pay for.
Even if it's a net gain revenue, it does not have to be common citizens.
I've talked to a lot of people that really like
Interesting you would say that, because when this was brought up to, I was at that council meeting in January, February. It was brought up, there was a motion to allow Warren to at least run some numbers and just do a feasibility study. Is this even worth considering? And it was shot down exactly for that, because it was the same meeting that it was noticed and discussed publicly. It was in the budget to fix potholes for the rest of the year, and they had just denied that, voted that down, and then this subject came up, and another councilman said, the optics are too bad, even if we want to do it, we can't do it until we start fixing the road.
There we go.
So we don't take action on this, but I think running some numbers to your point and looking at feasibility makes sense. And especially if we go through it over the next 3 or 4 months and we're fixing the potholes, we're fixing the rock wall, then maybe.
As long as the feasibility study's not cost 1 cent.
No, we're talking about running numbers ourselves.
Get a broker's price opinion.
That's right.
Yeah. So, the motion would be just to do some scenario planning, run some numbers on both.
On every option.
Yeah,
Yeah, and then on leasing it too.
Yeah.
I like to study with you.
I would love to see.
I want to see a slide.
So I'll entertain a motion.
I would make a motion that we allow city staff and council folks as they wish to assist in doing feasibility options and trying to bring in some budgets and some financial analysis of whether or not to move the city offices and the council chambers, whether or not to lease or move to that building. But got 3 or 4 options there. I think it'd be great, but that's a long-winded motion. Apologies. And comparative.
Motion just to run some numbers, look at some scenarios.
Yes, thank you. That's basic.
Is there a second? You want to second? All in favor? All right, all opposed? Abstain? Okay, you got 4 yes and Katie. Thank you very much. Number 11, Warren. CMAC.
Let's start this and where you want to tell us who people are. CMAC was created a great program, but what happened was each person on CMAC, they got appointed by the council. And so what happens when there's council members is normally you would then have to have, even the 2-year terms, whether it's a new council member for whatever reason, then that person would be basically cut. So we have 3 people, and I don't have that list, but I believe it's Steve Sheffy, Randy Carlson, or somebody else.
You want the current members are OJ, Frank LeBlanc, Steve Sheffy, David Barron, George, yes, and Brandon Carlson. There's 6.
So does it say who they belong to, each council member belong to? Then we'll know which one they're at. And Carlson's one.
No, I don't have to.
You got them, which one was so? Was that Brandon, the one who lives up? HC Sheffield, the one that lives up.
Brandon, George, and David Barons were the last three, I believe.
So it's the next three.
So I was at the meeting when they were talking about this also, and I don't know if we want to do this tonight, but I just been following them and I did. But they also mentioned changing from per council member appointments to just like regular vote of council, which is what I think all of the other committees do. And then they also asked to have 3-year terms instead of 2, I think, because they really like that. They really want to kind of like, their projects are so big, they want to last throughout council terms. So with 3 years, that gets them through like more than 1 term.
And this is not a political thing. This is really just, these are folks that volunteer their time and expertise that know a lot about different things. You know, one's an engineer, a couple of them are developers, contractors. Some have land or cattle, and they just understand different things.
It's been a lot of work. They've done a lot of great things.
Did they request the change of any?
It was their request.
Their request, okay.
No request to change. I think there were 3 new council members. There were 3 that needed somebody assigned to sponsor them, for lack of a better term. And OJ mentioned those names. There were a couple I agreed to sponsor one.
But do we need to change?
That's what they talked about at their last meeting. I don't know if I meant to call them and confirm, so I don't know.
So currently they need to be specifically assigned to an individual council member.
Right.
Or you can vote to change it and have it like you do at all the other councils where you just approve them.
Yeah.
Like all of council votes to accept all of them.
It's the least political of all the boards, and if these guys just want to serve, it's been cumbersome to say, okay, this one's yours. No, how about anybody can name their CMAC member? Yeah.
And then there's a vacancy, like I feel the vacancy.
Motion to change the method.
Yeah, motion
And
to
affirm the current membership.
Yeah.
So I could make a motion to change the method of appointment to vote on
Council at large.
council at large, 3-year terms and reappoint anyone whose term is out.
Or reappoint all members. Or a 3-year term.
All in favor? Yeah, very good. Thank you so much. Number 12.
Yeah, this one, so this is something that the Elementary Alliance reached out to me. Their goal is to bring awareness to water in Blanco County. And they're in the packet was a really good job explaining it. I'm basically gonna read their comments. There's a statewide campaign called Texas Runs on Water to raise awareness about water issues in Texas. So they want to do a specific one for Blanco County, partnering with the groundwater district and the CPI. And then they want to highlight that there's 2 rivers, watersheds in Blanco County that are now in the Blanco. So they'd like Johnson City and Blanco to kind of sponsor this poster contest that they're doing. So they've asked, they want to run like a poster art contest. And they've asked us to be a sponsor of it. And what that means is basically when listed our names listed on there. Someone from the city will help with judging the competition, which they said is like a 1 to 2 hour commitment. And then help promote the contest through social media or whatever means we have. They're also asking for a $250 contribution, which would go to prize money and but that's not, we don't have to do that. So that's basically.
Well, I'm all for raising awareness on water. I think probably know that. But and the younger the better, and it's a good way to start now.
So the ask is really just for us to publicly support them with this
Yeah.
initiative.
Yes, yeah, exactly.
I suspect that you're seeing the percentages we saw in our current budget, you can find $250.
I was gonna say the not with the money, but. Just look back.
I know that takes us down to.
You guys are ready or type that in the spreadsheet. Okay.
He's all listening.
Okay, okay.
That Mark Swenson said.
Order. Okay, anybody want to make a motion here? Everybody's getting-
I so moved that we, give them $250. And support them any way we can on our social media. I know I'll do it on, like H2O, whatever I can do. Whatever all of us can do. And I think we should also on poster.
I'll work on mine.
It is a conference.
Did it set anybody, so did you second? Okay, all in favor? Unanimous. Awesome, okay. Old business number one, warrant.
So last month, we approved, actually providing sewer, to this company called Neighborhood Market. And you advise, the staff to bring to you, the contract that is cost sharing agreement. This is the wastewater development service agreement. They agreed to reimburse us $95,000, which is approximately 25% of getting that suit to their line. Remember, they are physically, basically north of the Rugby Barn, and on the way to, so they're, yes, they're about half of it in floodplain, but they are working on. So this specifically is just like in the sewer, with the agreement. So question for staff and the agreement. Did you want to add anything on the agreement?
The agreement requires that they advance their share up front before anything starts. And the whole start of the agreement is subject to the city. Call on their money. They have to put the money in the bank before we do anything. Well, assuming that they make the cut to be on the list of this obligation we just approved, talking about wastewater, assuming that passes council next month, if it does, that list that we come up with for that use of those monies, would they wait until after August council? They'd have no choice, because the way this agreement is drafted, nothing gets started unless you first agree to the total project cost and you initiate it. So once you say, hey, we're ready to go, here's the cost, are you good? Okay, put your 25% in the bank, we'll go. So you're not really, if you bless this agreement, you're blessing, I think, pretty advantageous agreement. If you then later decide to actually move forward with it, especially if you're not deciding right, which I would recommend for the record, you are not deciding to move forward with this. You're deciding to bless a concept subject to further approval. And that's really what you're doing.
So this says Brewer 25%, if they agree with that?
Brewer, these folks.
No, these folks.
Brewer has,
no,
it's in here saying Brewer 25%.
Brewer, no. And this is a point I think that's very important. Warren and I have been talking here, sidebar, about the fact that your HR Green infrastructure study is coming in a few weeks. That's going to be the premise for your capital improvement plan, which is your premise for impact fee analysis and imposition, which of course then sets off the whole question of what
what infrastructure they're gonna build, sewer across the whole town. So blessing this is fine, and I would recommend you do it. But this bond number and all that figures into this HR Green report, which comes in a couple weeks. And starts the ball rolling on the ultimate question of what sewer you're gonna put in everywhere.
Yeah, and I've had discussion with John of the Hills, and they'd be interested as well. Now, they're on the root bed, but they'd be interested in tapping in, possibly looking at a basically development agreement. It's basically impact fees. You can't call it that, but there are other people that are interested. So.
They might get on both and talk about an agreement, they would,
Oh, yeah. And Dennis, this whole neighborhood back there.
Right.
It's a-
And they do need to be served.
Yeah.
They do need to be served, yes, sir.
Yes. Right.
Okay, so the motion is as written, it's just to approve the agreement, but not the expense.
That's good. You're not performing.
you're agreeing on the concept.
I mean, essentially, if you want to think of it, you're doing an impact fee with this guy at 25% of the deal.
Yeah.
And you don't have to do the deal yet. I recommend you do that.
I'll entertain a motion.
Well, I'll move that we approve and concept the wastewater development service.
That adequately worded. There's a second. Any more conversation? All in favor? Opposed? Staying. Got that? Thank you so much. Excellent. We're tabling old business number 2. And then we have old business number 3. This.
So, had some conversation with the alley, and, while we can, look at part-time code enforcement, she has reached out to, an attorney to deal with hot funds, and they're saying that cannot be used. We cannot hire a code enforcement officer, and I can provide it. I just got this email from her.
Yeah, I did too.
So we actually, now that's not to say you can't fund it a different way. I don't have funds for that at this point. But it cannot be top funds. I know the mayor has talked to, PRB, and I think they
I've talked to some of the bigger ones on the list, and they've all, they're willing to comply. They just need to know what it means.
Yeah.
They also have to balance their bank regulations and all this other stuff. It's not as easy as them just swapping out lights.
contacted them, and we can't, at this point, now we put something in it for the next year's budget, and we're not gonna be able to do it. Right.
Does anybody propose using other money for this, or should we?
Just something like inferior staff could do.
If we have time,
Not
yeah.
a lot of time, but
Yeah, if we have time.
Volunteer can do it too.
Volunteer can do it.
Based on that, I'm going to table this. And it's 8:33, that concludes this portion of our council meeting. We're gonna go into executive session. Thank you very much. Really shorter.